Every liturgical year, the Sunday of Christmas is celebrated as Holy Family Sunday, remembering Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. In many ways, this is a nice time to have this feast because we have been, in many different ways, been with family in a more intense way. By the time that all of this season is over, we might be even a little overdosing on family. After all the parties, the many family meals, the gift shopping, the travel, the cooking, the obligations and expectations, the children, the grandchildren, the big kids, all of that has been intensified during these times of Christmas. So many of us might have had maybe as much family as we can take for a while. So this feast challenges us to look at what it means to be family. During this Christmas season, it is easy to be sentimental about the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. After all, we can't forget that beautiful Christmas scene of the manger and the parents and the angels and all that went on. And we look at that as just this wonderful, perfect family that certainly would grow without obstacles. But we must also keep in mind that the Holy Family was flesh and blood, just like us. They were not that different from us. They were holy, certainly, but they were also human beings with all of the anxieties and uncertainties of being human. The story of the Holy Family did not always turn out as we would have expected. It'd be nice to think that nice tranquility of that Christmas night would have existed for the next 30 years. Well, it didn't. We know from the scriptures that it's a story, this family is a story of a teenage mother conceiving a child before she was married. It's the story of an anxious father confronting scandal, planning even to divorce. It's the story of a family forced to become refugees, living in the land that once held their ancestors as slaves. It is also the story of a missing child in days of anxious searching and fear by his parents. But there's even more. As a young man, Jesus, a member of this family, faced a violent death, one his mother had to watch with helplessness and almost unimaginable sorrow. No parent can ever find that anything but the most difficult thing in the world, to lose a child. This family was holy indeed, but it also was very human, and we are reminded of that. The church's liturgical calendar shows us that the Christmas season is generally thought of as a season of great light, and it is. But also, we must be aware through the liturgy that it's also a time of shadow. The day after Christmas, we celebrated the feast of the first martyr, St. Stephen. There was a cost to follow this newborn child, and Stephen paid that cost. Then a couple days later, we marked the feast of the Holy Innocents, the children slaughtered by Herod because of his jealousy and of his fear. And we know from our world today that that slaughter continues of the unborn, the slaughter of those that live in war-torn areas, that die from hunger, abandonment, loneliness, and hurt. The joy of Christmas, of Christ's birth, is suddenly tempered by the reality of tragic things still go on. And the Holy Family shared in that, and we certainly do. Well, we focused on a beautiful nativity scene that is arranged in front of the baptismal pool. Over the altar hangs a large cross of the crucified Christ. This juxtaposition of these two images in our church the nativity scene and the crucifix serve as a real powerful lesson for this feast. We realize that when we speak of the Holy Family, we speak also of a family that struggled and suffered like so many of us suffer and struggle. But this family also knew profound hope. They trusted completely in God's providence. They call us to that kind of trust, and they are with us. That's the good news of Christmas, God with us. We realize that when we speak of the Holy Family, we speak of a family that struggled and suffered, and like so many of us, we continue to do that. The Holy Family stands besides parents, anxious about their children, worry for their well-being. The Holy Family walk with immigrants and refugees separated from their land and their people and their families. The Holy Family comfort teenage mothers and single parents. The Holy Family console the prisoner, the outcast, the bully, the scorned, and the parent who loved them. And the Holy Family offers solace and compassion to any mother or father grieving the loss of a child. The Holy Family shares our burdens, but they also uplift us by their example. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph were never alone. They endured through the grace of God. They knew that the Lord walked with them. They prayed, they hoped, they trusted that God would make sense of this path that they were given to walk. We might ask ourselves where we can find that kind of peace and purpose in our own families, in our own lives, especially when things seem sometimes to get out of control. In Paul's beautiful letter to Corinthians that we heard read this morning, he tells us to put on these virtues: compassion, kindness, lowliness, meekness, patience, forgiveness, and love. It all sounds simple, and yet we know it's very difficult. I am sure the Holy Family had moments when living these virtues seemed hard or even impossible. They gave themselves fully to God so that God could direct them. When we find ourselves overwhelmed, we need to remember where we look today and remember to look towards the nativity scene. There is a model for living: Jesus, Mary, and Joseph. But we need to see them in full, remembering the closeness of the cross. That was their life, joy and sorrow. That's our life too. Yet through all their hardships, in a time of anxiety and difficulty, persecution and tragedy, a time very much like our own, they showed us how to be people of faith, people of forgiveness, and especially people of love.